With news of a new Riot Games shooter sweeping the web March 2020, the internet was caught off guard at the announcement of Valorant, a competitive 5v5 character-based shooter for the PC. Riot Games, of course, having a long history of development on the long-standing and mega-popular League of Legends. They more recently have been attempting other styles of games. What Riot has done with Teamfight Tactics, Legends of Runeterra, and now Valorant is finding the market and trying to carve out your own place within it, taking inspiration from the biggest in those respective genres. Valorant is set to launch sometime in summer of 2020, boasting 128 tick servers and a supposed custom-built netcode to aid in precise hit registration. Not only am I interested in following and covering the life cycle of Valorant, as I don't no longer play Overwatch at this point, I made an interesting observation concerning Valorant. While I have no secret intel concerning the game, I have covered in the past in my post-mortem series, Death of a Game, a couple of hero shooters that have failed, and I think some of these hero shooters can teach Valorant a thing or two, both in what they did right and what they did wrong. With Valorant being compared to the likes of Counter-Strike, it's not hard to see why, at times it reminded me of a forgotten round-based shooter that had much the same problem. Shadowrun, developed by FASA Studios and published by Microsoft, launched back in May of 2007 on Xbox and PC games for Windows Live. I did a Death of a Game on the title here and listed a number of reasons as to why the game failed ultimately based on what evidence I gathered in my detective work. The failure of Shadowrun aside, it has some similarities when compared to Riot Games' new Valorant. For starters, people called Shadowrun Counter-Strike with magic. Lawbreakers and Dirty Bomb do have some similarities to Valorant, being more gun-centric hero class shooters, but their main gameplay loops are different. Perhaps if we take the time to study what Shadowrun did wrong and what caused them to fail, we could help Valorant learn from those mistakes going forward. Shadowrun, like Valorant, was using Counter-Strike as strong inspiration for the game type, adopting a search and destroy style of play, with each game consisting of a number of rounds and an objective to accomplish. Valorant is a 5 vs 5 round-based competitive shooter featuring a best of 24 rounds of gunfights. In Valorant, you chose a hero and worked together with your teammates to plant the spike or the bomb on one of the bomb sites. In Shadowrun, each match you created your character by choosing options such as race, starting weapons, and abilities. That's where it is slightly different from Valorant, as instead of races, Valorant is a hero shooter with 10 at the moment pre-designed characters with their own 4 unique abilities. Where Shadowrun and Valorant are similar in this is how they get access to weapons and abilities. Likely from the aforementioned Counter-Strike as inspiration, in both games you had intermissions between rounds where you could use the money you accrued through playing objectives and getting kills to purchase better weapons and abilities or tacticals. In Valorant, each character has up to 4 abilities to purchase, and you're given one for free each round, which is your signature ability, with an ultimate ability requiring kills to charge. In both games, you're also unable to switch your character post-character selection, and unless you stay alive in the round, you could lose your weapons or your abilities. Shadowrun made a crucial distinction in design versus Valorant though, and it's something that's gotten me really excited in anticipation about. Shadowrun, as a title being one of the first cross-platform titles, was not a game about pinpoint accuracy. Guns were pretty largely inaccurate, and characters could feel like bullet sponges. Valorant, on the other hand, is taking the inspiration from the more gun-centric game like Counter-Strike and taking a different path than Shadowrun in that respect, a PC-only title and one that's focusing on competitive shooter quality servers for precise gunplay. This is actually a positive thing. I personally pointed out for players and critics alike in my Shadowrun post-mortem how they didn't enjoy how inaccurate some of the guns were, especially when the game was trying to be so Counter-Strike-like except with magic abilities. Comparisons to Overwatch for Valorant don't really hold up properly for this reason. Overwatch is a more ability-centric game, where abilities have more of a significant effect than guns. Time to kill in Overwatch due to some of these abilities can be as quick as a second, with some players being killed instantly by an ability. Not to mention Overwatch over the years of life has nerfed its hit-scan precision shooting characters and added easier to aim characters, or characters that didn't require much aiming. With the time to kill looking especially short in Valorant, this is a stark contrast, as these kinds of abilities wouldn't make sense in Valorant. Valorant focusing more on the Shadowrun approach of purchasing abilities each round and using these abilities instead of nades or utility items like in Counter-Strike to control the map. This allows for, without the risk of saying CSGO or Counter-Strike too many times here as examples, individual skill to impact the chances of winning a game more. If a certain player is playing very well in Valorant, he might not only have a good weapon, but also abilities that make him that much more potent. Effective gun economy separates good players from the double AKs. More chances for individuality translate to more chances for individual players to both win the game and create those exciting competitive and esport moments with your friends on streams and of course at tournaments. Another aspect Valorant is doing differently than Shadowrun, and an aspect I attributed part of Shadowrun's failure to, is its monetization. Valorant is a free-to-play game with the typical gun, skin, cash shop, and an in-game currency. They're also going to be featuring, like Fortnite, a battle pass system. Shadowrun was a $60 only multiplayer title, which was originally supposed to have a single player, but due to time constraints they had to scrap it. Needless to say, business model for Shadowrun didn't do it any favors. Riot Games having great success from League of Legends on top of their big publisher, Tencent having tons of experience with free-to-play games, means that the free-to-play in Valorant is probably in good hands. Lawbreakers was a shooter I covered that fell victim to monetization issues, with players practically begging for free-to-play for many months, so it's good to see that Valorant is not going to be incurring any of these similar problems. Shadowrun had the problem of being stuck with games for Windows Live during the Windows Vista era. Valorant's not going to have these same issues, and as shown with Legends of Runeterra, Riot Games can make a game available for the masses. A key factor of the Shadowrun and Valorant comparison is when the game's launched, or in Valorant's case, when it's supposed to launch. Shadowrun launched at the same time as Halo 3, one of the most successful console shooters ever. One of the most played Xbox games. And as you can expect, Shadowrun didn't stand much of a chance in that regard. Valorant, as of March 2020, set to launch in the summer, has little ways of competition. Sure, COD Modern Warfare is out and about and they surely have an esports scene, but their actual competitive matchmaking is pretty limited. They use a playlist and not an actual matchmaking system. What else is going after the 5 vs 5 competitive shooter market? With Overwatch 2, which is an extra player, focusing on PvE content, there might be plenty of room for Valorant in the space. With the backing of Riot Games, who has a history of now competitive gaming and their support of such, Valorant is positioned to be the next big competitive game. My biggest worries concerning Valorant, and these are especially warranted considering many different hero shooters have fallen victim to its problem, because Valorant is a gun-focused hero shooter, it makes for balance of abilities that much more important. When Riot Games introduces new heroes, they have to be careful not to introduce heroes or abilities that turn things too far into one balanced direction. This is different than their experience with League of Legends. I chalk this up to a fear of why some heroes and abilities shown so far by Riot look a little bit more generic, or maybe better yet, safe. If the abilities are too powerful, it takes away from the fast time to kill with guns that can one-tap your whole playstyle experience. We've also recently watched Overwatch go from one of the most played shooters to having a competitive scene most people remember with negativity or forgot even exists. Overwatch has characters who are hit-scan and gun-centric, or more gun-centric if you will. Over time, however, Blizzard continued to nerf these characters and introduce characters who had near auto-aim abilities. This shift in game design made such things as shield in Overwatch that much more powerful. With Valorant having the faster time to kill, less egregious and over-the-top abilities, and lacking a strong shield-focused meta, this should keep it free from these big issues. While we're in the habit of explaining Valorant comparisons, we can address another one that is made of graphics having a striking resemblance to Team Fortress 2. This one is an easy thing to solve. The art director for Valorant, Moby Frankie, was the art lead on TF2 as well. And Valorant isn't as over-the-top as perhaps we're used to with some of these character or hero-based shooters, but that's because the game is based in the real world, just in a future timeline. Characters are based in part on characters from real areas and regions, such as Great Britain, the US, and Russia. I don't know if I agree with the decision too much overall, but I guess the comparisons to CSGO would have been too damaging had the game looked a little bit too fantasy-like perhaps? Simply put, if it looks enough like CSGO, it might bring in eyes and attention, and whether or not the gameplay would keep people around, that would remain to be seen. I think Valorant very clearly with their art style, which is very minimalist, is trying to adequately function on a plethora of types of machines, toaster or not, and their art style and graphics seem to work for the competitive 5 vs 5 shooter they're trying to create. Not every game needs to have Witcher 3 level graphics after all, and personally speaking, graphics aren't really my biggest focus. With the summer being only a few months away, I am excited to watch the rollout of Valorant take place. We've had a bit of a lull for competitive 5 vs 5 shooters on the PC, so it feels good to get another in that realm that's focusing on ranked matchmaking too. I think that in the end, if Valorant is to be successful, Riot must learn from the failures of the many hero shooters that we talked about today and the many that have come before. If you guys have any video suggestions about Valorant, let me know in the comments below. I hope to do some impressions, analysis, and possibly even a review of the game at a later date. Anyway, thanks always for the support, and thanks for watching.